There is a cardiologist who hasn't touched one specific food in 11 years. Not because of a diet trend. Not because someone told him to. Because he watched a patient die. A patient who had done everything right. And that afternoon, he went home and removed it from his kitchen forever. This man has performed over 4,000 cardiac procedures. He has held a living human heart in his hands. He has delivered the kind of news that breaks families in half. And after 3 decades inside the most advanced cardiac units in the world, the thing that changed his personal diet wasn't a new drug or a surgical breakthrough. It was a pattern. One he had been seeing for years without recognizing it. Until the day he finally did. What he understood in that moment isn't in the standard medical curriculum. The industry that profits from this food has spent considerable resources making sure it stays that way. We were told the story was about cholesterol. High numbers, danger. Low numbers, safety. Take the medication, watch the diet, manage the markers, and your heart will be fine. That framework made sense. It was clean. It was measurable. It gave patients something to track and doctors something to prescribe. But it has one catastrophic flaw. Half of all first heart attack victims have completely normal cholesterol levels. Half. That figure comes directly from the American Heart Association and has been documented for over a decade. So if cholesterol doesn't explain half the deaths, what does? In 2017, researchers at the Cleveland Clinic identified a compound called TMAO. It is produced in the gut when specific bacteria digest nutrients found in certain foods. It enters the bloodstream silently. It accelerates arterial inflammation. It drives plaque formation in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with cholesterol levels. What they found disturbed the entire cardiology community. Patients with elevated TMAO had dramatically higher rates of heart attack, stroke, and cardiac death, completely independent of every traditional marker doctors had relied on for 50 years. Harvard Medical School confirmed it the following year. For certain patients, TMAO wasn't just a contributing factor. It was the primary driver. The thing that pushed a vulnerable cardiovascular system past the point of no return. The food that produces the highest TMAO levels in the human body is red meat. Not processed junk. Not fast food. Red meat. The kind marketed as high-quality protein. The kind recommended in ancestral diets, performance nutrition programs, and countless wellness movements that positioned it as a return to natural eating. The cardiologist understood this the afternoon his patient died. The man on his table was 54 years old. Lean. Active. Normal cholesterol. Normal blood pressure. He had been eating what he genuinely believed was a clean, protein-rich diet for years. His TMAO levels had been silently elevated the entire time, feeding arterial inflammation that no standard test had ever flagged, building damage that had no symptoms, no warnings, and no second chances. He died before anyone thought to look for the real cause. But here is where it gets stranger. 2 people can eat the exact same meal and produce completely different TMAO levels. The difference is in the gut microbiome. Which bacteria dominate? Which ones have been fed and multiplied over years of accumulated dietary choices? Which means the risk is invisible, personal, and already being determined right now by an ecosystem inside you that was built long before you ever heard any of this. Your gut is not neutral. It is either protecting your heart or quietly working against it. Dr. Stanley Hazen at the Cleveland Clinic ran the experiment that made this impossible to dismiss. Volunteers consumed red meat daily for 1 month. TMAO levels were tracked throughout. Then the same participants switched to a plant-based protocol for 30 days. Within weeks of the red meat phase, TMAO rose sharply in the majority of participants. Arterial inflammation markers followed directly. When they switched, levels dropped significantly within 30 days. One participant, a 51-year-old man who had eaten meat his entire life, watched his TMAO fall by 60% in 4 weeks. No medication. No surgery. One dietary change. His cardiologist called him personally to ask what had happened. The answer was one food. Removed. Nothing else. You have TMAO levels right now. Unless you have specifically tested for them, which almost no standard blood panel includes, you have no idea where they stand. You are not watching a story about someone else. You are watching a description of a biological process that may be happening inside your chest at this exact moment, silently, without a single symptom to warn you. That is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to make you curious enough to find out the truth about your own body. Here is what this is really about. Medicine built its entire cardiovascular framework around markers that were measurable in 1970. Cholesterol, blood pressure, body weight. Not because those were the most important factors. Because they were the ones available with the tools of that era. The guidelines, the drugs, and the dietary advice were all built around the limits of old technology. Now the tools are better. And what we are finding is forcing a complete re-examination of how hearts actually fail. TMAO is not the end of that story. It is the beginning. There is a test. TMAO plasma levels. It is not on a standard panel. Most physicians will not order it unless you ask directly by name. If you eat red meat regularly and carry any family history of cardiovascular disease, ask for it. That conversation alone could be the most valuable one you have this year. Not because red meat is dangerous for every person who eats it, but because for certain people, based on their specific gut bacteria, it is producing a compound that is damaging arterial walls right now in a way that your last cholesterol result will never reveal. The risk is not theoretical. It is measurable. And it is preventable. The cardiologist still operates. He still holds hearts in his hands. But now before he opens a chest, he thinks about the years of quiet chemistry that brought that heart to this moment. The meals. The habits. The invisible biology that nobody warned the patient about. He stopped eating that food 11 years ago not out of fear. Out of understanding. Fear fades. Understanding stays. And once you see the mechanism clearly, once you actually understand what has been happening inside you, you cannot unsee it. That is the only thing that creates permanent change. If TMAO has been operating silently inside the cardiovascular system for years without a single symptom, what else is running silently somewhere else in your body right now? Next video. The answer is closer to home than you think. See you there.